What we're hearing about immigration and the border is completely overwhelming. Just this past week, we were faced with headlines about planned ICE raids and children in detention living in completely inhumane and dangerous conditions. There is no doubt in my mind that we are facing a humanitarian and refugee crisis. It's devastating. What makes it even more difficult is this polarized political time that we're living in. News reports on both sides make it hard for people to sort through the noise and find the facts. From 2018 to 2019, and especially in the last 6 months, we've seen a massive increase in border migration, mainly from families and unaccompanied minors. The data is clear. People from Central America are traveling through Mexico and entering the United States to flee unimaginable violence and poverty in search of help and protection. We aren't talking about violent people intending to break the law here. They aren't crossing the border and trying to sneak into America. They aren't smuggling drugs or guns across the border. They are walking in, sometimes as families, sometimes as young kids with their toddler siblings, approaching Border Patrol agents and begging for help. They are refugees, desperate for survival, and what's keeping them going is hope for a better life in the greatest country in the world. I've spoken to these kids. The reasons they're leaving their homes are devastating. Think about it. You would need to be facing incredibly horrible circumstances to make the decision to leave your home, leave your family, leave everything that you know and love to make a dangerous journey to a foreign land where you have no idea what you will face. A huge majority of the people who are fleeing their homes to America are coming from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. And there's a reason that we're seeing so many people from these 3 countries, which are also known as the Northern Triangle. The circumstances causing people to leave their homes were created or at least exacerbated by the United States' interference in those countries going back decades. In other words, our flawed foreign policy of the past has shaped the present immigration crisis. Our involvement in Central America goes back all the way to the 1950s. This history is complex and would take hours to fully explain, but the point here is this. We played a major role in destabilizing this region, and the consequences of our actions are a major factor in the refugee crisis that we see today. Now, it's time for us to own up to what we've done, to take responsibility, and to figure out how to handle it. Other countries around the world have been dealing with similar situations for a long time, and in fact, we have too before. And honestly, our whole world is going to have more and more of this in the decades to come as refugees increase from violence and famine due to climate change. Our own military has been warning us about this. The European Union has done research of best practices from their own efforts. Here are some ideas that I think are worth exploring. First, we must work with our allies. We need to implement regional plans that involve all neighboring countries. We have to recognize that this is not a problem that goes away by throwing money at more detention beds. The answer also can't be sending families back across the border to Mexico to wait. That too is dangerous. Mexico isn't equipped for it either, and frankly, it's abdicating our responsibility. We should work with Mexico to develop a shared plan, not threaten insane tariffs to coerce them into doing what we want. We need to instead spend money providing meaningful help for these children and families because we are seen as the great beacon of hope, and that's what our country was founded and built on. And it is the only thing that's right when your country's dangerous foreign policy decisions created or at least added to this chaos in the first place. Here are what I think should be some immediate next steps. We need to help the people who are already here, especially the children in detention facilities. Border Patrol and ICE, law enforcement agencies, are not equipped to and cannot take care of kids, nor should they. As we've seen, it's a disaster waiting to happen. Finding these kids temporary homes with foster families, connecting them with other family they have in the United States, and funding a program to reunite them with their families as quickly as possible is a must. We will still need some temporary holding facilities at the border for people who are still entering. These temporary facilities should be run by community-based organizations and nonprofits who will actually provide a safe and clean environment for these children and families and treat them with dignity. The courts are completely backlogged. We need to invest in major legal resources to process this inflow and ensure that asylum claims are valid and that we know who people are, whether they have any issues in their background, and where they're going. That will ensure our security. The United States is a world leader, and we need to act like one. That includes convening all regional stakeholders to figure out a plan. That will be hard to do when our president is dangerous and unpredictable and has shown time and again that he and his administration don't care about the well-being of refugees or how the rest of the world sees us or whether he destroys alliances for decades to come. It's on the rest of us to figure out how to do this without his support. Philosophically, we have to decide who we want to be as a country when it comes to refugees. Personally, I think integration is the way to go. It's the right thing to do, and it's the best for our economy. How much more incredible will we be when we welcome the next wave of people who want to be Americans. You have my commitment to do everything in my power as a member of Congress to solve this crisis and turn it into an opportunity. What I ask you is don't turn away from the news. Do your research to find the facts. Volunteer for organizations in your own community who are doing the work to help solve the crisis rather than throwing money at the problem. Support attorneys who are doing pro bono work to help find these children a safe temporary home and reunite them with their families. And we need elected officials who will create policies that reflect our shared American values and human decency. November 2020 offers us the biggest opportunity of all to elect a new president and flip the Senate so that when we're faced with incredibly challenging circumstances, we have elected leaders in power who are driven to do what's right and to help people. We may not have created this mess, but it's up to us to fix it. I hope you're with me.